Hi, welcome to SBRtv. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our football opening lines show with John Ryan. We're doing this now, though, on Tuesday at about noon Eastern, so they're not quite openers anymore. They're more like early midweek lines, but we're going to talk about them anyway and see what John has to say about them. We're looking right now at NCAA football Week 10 and NFL Week 9. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Peter. Thanks.
All right. There's two lines that I admit that I hit pretty freaking hard on opening, and I kind of like them, but I'm a little bit nervous about them. The first one I hit is, God damn it, Colorado plus 21.5 at home against USC. You know, USC's off a short week, that huge, win, that huge loss, triple overtime against Stanford, and I'm just thinking, Colorado's obviously been terrible this year, but I've been reading that this week they've sort of been like, looking inside themselves and like getting rid of the players that have been problems, and like they're going to come out and give a good effort. And I just thought Friday night game at home 21.5. I hit it pretty hard. What do you think? You think you're going to get blown out?
I think you got a good idea there. I think the value is on Colorado.
Yeah.
I do think that this line probably might gravitate a little bit higher.
You think so?
See, it might have been a little early, but I think 21.5 is just a really good number.
Yeah, well, last time I checked, it was actually down to 21, so it took a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that the public will pound USC, but we might see some reverse line movement on it. And then the other one I took pretty hard was a very small game. It was Eastern Michigan at home against Ball State. You might have nothing to say about it. I got them at -2. Now it's 2.5. Eastern Michigan's kind of like a team that, they're obviously from a tiny conference, but they used to have a football program that was completely ignored, but it's been a little bit rejuvenated. The fans are really getting into it. They're off of a bye week. They just got a decent win last week, I think, and they're playing Ball State. I thought -2. Yeah, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree with that side. The value's on Eastern Michigan here. Less than 3-point favorite at home. Ball State hasn't impressed me all year, so I think the line there is probably going to go higher.
Right, and that's the thing is that less than 2-point favorite at home. Now, with Eastern Michigan, that used to mean nothing. They had no home field advantage. No one cared about the football program, but that's changed with the new coach, and this year things are starting to really roll a little bit for them. Then there's a couple other lines I think are interesting. First of all, what do you think of Wyoming plus 19 at home against TCU? TCU is not quite the same TCU of years past, and, Wyoming's been decent this year at times. 19, that's a lot of points to get at home for them, right?
Yeah, it is. I question, though, whether Wyoming has the athletic talent across the board to compete with Texas Christian for 4 quarters. Wyoming seems to be that type of team that can compete for 2 quarters, maybe 2.5, be really into the game, and then all of a sudden a couple mistakes and the game is over. Yeah,
but TCU hasn't really blown people out. Where do you think this line will move? You think it'll actually move into the 20s, or you think it'll just people will ignore this game?
I think this line's fairly set.
And then what about one thing that I looked at Arkansas -4 at home against South Carolina. That's kind of an intriguing line. Like Arkansas, they were playing well. They've obviously got a great team this year, but they've had 2 road games now where they were big favorites, where they got the wins but not covers. So maybe that's keeping their line a little bit low. South Carolina, though, they're obviously a great team, and they're maybe a little bit better now that Garcia's not the quarterback anymore. I saw it at 4. Now it's 4.5. What do you think? You think maybe Arkansas? You think this line will close or should close closer to 7, whether it does or not?
Yeah, I think so, Peter. This game is in the shadows of the LSU-Alabama game, but it has major ramifications for the victor in terms of the SEC division standings.
All right, then what do you think about Iowa State -14.5 at home against Kansas? I'm pretty much like always on the lookout for who Kansas is playing this week, any week, because they're so bad. Last week I loved Texas against them. 14.5. Iowa State had a great win last week. The line I think now is at 14. How bad is Kansas? And you think that Iowa State might be a good bet?
Yeah, I think so. I think this Iowa State can make some noise here against Kansas. They were blown out by Kansas State 2 weeks ago. I don't see much going on for Kansas at all. Right, the tail end of the season essentially is done for them.
Yeah.
Very little to play for except the underclassmen coming back.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Iowa State might. Where do you think this line might move? I mean, Iowa State, these lines in the mid-teens in college football aren't that valuable, but you think that'll move significantly?
I don't think significantly because it's already kind of up there.
Yeah. And then another game with a similar line, but that's a little bit more intriguing to me on the underdog is Wake Forest plus 14 at home against Notre Dame. You think that line will move significantly, and you think that anyone's going to back either side?
I think the public will back Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
clearly. But Wake, as as each week has gone on, we have. I think you would agree that you and I are both Wake fans, for lack of a better word. We certainly have played on them more than against them. And I think there's some tremendous value here on with Wake Forest. So as that line moves higher, I think the more I'm actually going to look into that as a possible play.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then I noticed there's a bunch of big home dogs in the Pac-12. UCLA, Washington, and Oregon State are all big home underdogs in the Pac-12. What do you think about any of those lines? Do you think those are going to move at all?
The Washington line is one of those lines we were just talking about. I think that one is getting really inflated. I just don't see Oregon being if that line would go to 17, I just don't see Oregon being able to go on the road to a decent Washington team who plays well at home and cover a 17 number. I mean, that's a big task.
Yeah. And then before we get to the big one, the Oklahoma teams are once again huge favorites against good teams, but they've actually been a good bet in that situation. Here they are again. What do you think the public will do with these lines, and what do you think the value might be?
Well, Oklahoma was one of our 5-star bets in the thread. By the way, we did go 5-0 last week. I have to say that because that doesn't happen very often to anybody.
You didn't go 5-0 against the spread last week. Are you serious?
Yeah, 5-0 in college, and believe it or not, 4-1 in the NFL.
All right, well, you're not that's got to be an element of luck in there, right?
There was. I had a nice little play last night that lucked out too. So.
All right, well, congratulations. Congratulations. That's a hell of a lot better than I did this past week.
The combination of the two is pretty powerful this past weekend, Peter. But as we all know, we're not going to go 9-1 again this week.
Right. Congratulations. Hey, you had a good week, man.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma is a real team. I can't tell you what happened with Texas Tech in their loss at home. I don't know if it was the hour-and-a-half delay, the fact that Whalen was injured and out, who is also now out for the season, by the way. That ankle injury is far more severe than anybody, I guess, had known.
Right.
So he's gone for the season, but this line is still maintaining, massive double digits. I think Oklahoma is trying to find a way where they can back themselves into the BCS championship.
Yeah. Speaking of the BCS championship game in most people's minds is coming up this week. LSU, Alabama. Alabama opened actually 2 weeks ago. They opened this line at Pinnacle and opened at Alabama -5, which surprised me a little bit. Got bet down, I think, to about 3.5. Now I see it's back up to 5. You have anything to say about this line?
Essentially, what this is telling you is that Alabama is a marginally better team than LSU. And granted, with number 1 against number 2, this is the line you would expect. There's very rarely has a number 1 played a number 2, and it's been more than 7 points. So I think this is a very fair line. I think it was an easy one for the lines maker to come up with. I mean, this is almost like establishing a pro line.
All right, that's college football week 10. That's the opening lines for college football week 10. Let's move on to NFL week 9. Okay, John?